Tim Kaine is the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and behind the scenes, he's up to a lot of no good. I'm looking at the Huffington Post. It says here that Organizing for America really started to get involved in Wisconsin after Chairman Tim Kaine spoke with local legislators last week. OFA then began organizing turnout for Thursday's State House rally. Then I have other publications, Washington Compost, talking about Tim Kaine, former Virginia governor, spoke to union leaders in Madison, a party official said. So behind the scenes, Tim Kaine is very busy rabble-rousing public sector union members against the taxpayers and the middle class. He's a former governor of Virginia, a right-to-work state, so I thought I would call a friend of mine who's a former governor of Virginia who might be running against him, and a man I'm strongly endorsing, the great George Allen. How are you, George?
I'm doing great, Mark, and you're exactly right. Virginia is a right-to-work state, and we don't have public servants collective bargaining precisely because it leads to these sort of strikes against the interests of the taxpayers and the people. And what's going on right now is what you have is the labor bosses versus the school children and the taxpayers. And you'd think, as far as Governor Kaine is concerned, being a governor from Virginia, you'd think he'd understand and appreciate the value of our right-to-work law. It is a great law for recruiting business and jobs to Virginia, keeping jobs in Virginia. And we're the furthest state north on the eastern seaboard with the right-to-work law. And I just know from recruiting business to Virginia, it gives us a great competitive advantage.
Well, I'm really concerned. Does this man want to represent the unions in Wisconsin? Does he want to be head of the AFL-CIO or AFSCME? Or is he interested in being a senator from the Commonwealth of Virginia?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to it. But they are siding with the labor bosses against the school children. In fact, this is a pattern with the liberals in Washington, by the way. When I was in the Senate, we passed a measure called the D.C. School Choice Act, where 1,700 scholarships were provided to low-income school children in D.C., and I advocated for it. We passed by one vote, and then President Obama and the liberals like Pelosi and Reid and all stopped this beneficial opportunity for low-income school children due to labor bosses' opposition. So it's a typical pattern.
Well, I think this is very, very important because you make a good point. It's not just do you side with the NEA and their affiliates against the taxpayers, because they clearly do. It's whether you side with them against the kids. I'm going to tell you something. You got a lot of working parents out there who are working like hell to make ends meet, and then the schools, they have these sick outs, and so they got to hustle to find somebody to watch their kids, or they can't go to work. It is extremely troubling to untold numbers of parents. They're not making friends in the school community either, I don't think.
No, not at all. And you know what Governor Kaine and his DNC and the president ought to be doing, rather than expending partisan resources to thwart Wisconsin governor's effort to get their budget in balance, they ought to be focusing their time and attention to balancing the federal budget, which is facing a $1.6 trillion deficit. And then the other thing on all this, you know, we're watching all these protests in various Middle Eastern countries. We're seeing people in the streets demanding the right to vote and elect their representatives. And in Wisconsin, they're in the streets in the Capitol trying to keep the voice of the people from being heard and trying to prevent elected representatives from voting. I think it's shameful that the Democratic National Committee is busing people into Wisconsin to engage in this kind of conduct.
Well, I really think Tim Kaine, the DNC chairman, has a lot to answer for. And Senator Allen, Governor Allen, my friend, I appreciate you coming on. God bless. Oh, by the way, your website is georgeallen.what?
georgeallen.com. You can go on to our fan page on Facebook as well. We'd love to get more folks to join with our A-team, and we have a good, encouraging start. And, of course, it's great to have your support and all your good, patriotic listeners. And what I want to do is bring Virginia's values to Washington, and they're not being represented right now. And the voices of Virginians and the good common-sense conservative views need to be advocated to get our country going in the right direction again.
Yeah, well, if Tim Kaine is the Democrat nominee, we now know without any question, unequivocally, who he stands with and what he stands for. All right, George Allen, God bless you, my friend.
All right, thank you, Mark, and I'm going to stand strong like you do for freedom.
All right, God bless, my friend. Wouldn't he be great? Got to get him back in the Senate. Not only that, poke the Washington compost in the eye, too. They don't get to pick our senators. So we have the President of the United States unleashing his, let's see, what shall I call it? If I say goose steppers, I'll get in trouble. I say brown shirts, I'll get in trouble. How about Mubarakites? Yeah, Mubarakites. Unleashing his Mubarakites into the streets throughout the capital of Wisconsin. We have the DNC interfering in state matters. It's the Democrat National Committee, not the Wisconsin Democrat Committee. We have the thug president of the AFL-CIO, that Trumka. He's a real a-hole. That's right, Trumka. That's what you are. Socialist. We have Jesse Jerkson, as the great Bob Grant used to call him. Jesse Jerkson showing up there. Real freak show. Real conga line of goofballs. And I want to see more of them. Every jerk, radical, freak on the left, I want you to go to Wisconsin. I want you to make sure that you show yourselves in front of the TV cameras. Whatever you do, tell the American people exactly who you are, what you stand for, what your mission statement is. Because let me tell you something. We can't pay enough money to expose you to the rest of our fellow citizens. So by all means, all you irregular Americans, go ahead. Make yourselves known. Tell the world who you are and what you are. Because let me tell you a little secret. I said it at the beginning of the week. The American people have had enough of you and your crap. What's going on in Wisconsin is an undemocratic rebellion by a handful of well-funded teacher union types. By the way, there are 300,000 public sector employees in Wisconsin, I am told. There aren't 300,000 of them in the streets. Have you noticed? I think they had 25,000 or 30,000, and it wasn't all employees. Some of the shipped-in thugs. They are a distinct minority of the population, a very small percentage. Let me tell you jerks when we're going to rise up. The next election. We're going to rise up again. You know, I'm going to bare my soul to you. I was a little concerned a month or two ago that some of the energy that caused the landslide election in November, well, we may have lost some of it. I was concerned about it. I didn't say anything because events change things, and now I feel it's back. You feel it too? You do. And we can thank AFSCME and the NEA and Obama and Tim Kaine. Now Pelosi has come out in support of, she said she's proud of the Democrats who left the state. Well, she would be, being a liberal goon as she is. That's right, I said it. Stretch. You're expanding our ranks. Every day our numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The American people need to defend themselves. We've come to this conclusion. We cannot count on the Republican leadership. We cannot count on anybody else. We have to defend ourselves. And that's what we're doing. We're defending our families. We're defending our private property rights. We're defending our future. We're defending the future of our children. That is what we're about. We don't ask anything from anybody. We don't want to take anybody's money and line our pockets. We don't expect people to pay for our health care. We don't expect people. In fact, we're trying to fight Obamacare. We don't expect anybody to pay for our pensions. We want you thugs to keep your damn hands off our wallets. Whether you're politicians or bureaucrats or whatever the hell you are. Get your crummy hands off my kids, off my property, and off our future. This isn't between the governor of Wisconsin and you jerks. It's between you jerks and us, the American people. And that goes for Washington, too, Mr. Tim Kaine, phony moderate. And for you, too, Obama, just a plain phony. You send your goons. Let me tell you what we are now, ladies and gentlemen. We are all citizens of Wisconsin. I don't care if you're listening to me in Los Angeles and San Francisco, in Austin and Dallas and Houston, in Miami, in Jacksonville. I don't care where you are, in New York, Chicago. We are all citizens of Wisconsin right now. This is the political battleground. We didn't choose it, but that's the way it goes. And by the way, if you want to help support the efforts of the governor of Wisconsin and the people of Wisconsin, of which we are one, you can go to standwithwalker.com. Check it out, standwithwalker.com, from Americans for Prosperity. Not only do we have a petition there to support Walker, but we are organizing a rally of our own for tomorrow, Saturday, at noon, at the state capitol in Madison, Wisconsin. If you're in the area or in the surrounding states, please consider. Go to standwithwalker.com. We are all citizens of Wisconsin today. I can feel it. I always have a good feeling for these things. This backlash, talked about it the other day, there is a backlash coming. We're not a prosperous nation right now. We have a federal government that is utterly out of control. Every street in every community in America is feeling what's going on in this economy. The Washington bureaucrats and politicians and their media mouthpieces can talk about recovery. There is no recovery. Not for Main Street, anyway. You walk through your malls, whether they're strip malls or indoor malls, you see the stores that are shuttered. You see your neighbors with the sale signs on their lawns or their foreclosures going on. Many of you are paying mortgages. That's your obligation on homes that are worth far less than the loan that you're paying. And you see a political party that has been taken over by radical statists, which rejects reality and rejects the will of the people. I could have sworn that Obama said his number one focus was going to be on jobs. I told you yesterday he was going out west to San Francisco to meet with those high-tech chiefs, not to ask them how to create jobs, which was the phony line they put out and the media bought it hook, line, and sinker, to shake them down for campaign contributions. You must understand Obama is an extremely selfish, self-centered man. This is self-aggrandizement. That's what it is. He's interfering in the internal events in Wisconsin, just as he has in Arizona. He has sent his lawyer thugs into that state to stop the governor there from protecting her citizens. So he attacks states. He attacks governors. He attacks state legislators. What the hell is he? Is he a king? Where did this come from? We'll be right back. FDR, our friend Quinn Hillier at the Washington Times. FDR versus the Wisconsin teachers. The big issue in Wisconsin is whether or not public sector workers should have collective bargaining rights, at least as it applies to their benefits. In an August 16, 1937 letter to Luther Stewart, the president of the National Federation of Public Employees, FDR had something to say about it. He said, "Meticulous attention should be paid to the special relationships and obligations of public service to the public itself and to the government. All government employees should realize that the process of collective bargaining, as usually understood, cannot be transplanted into the public service." This is FDR. "It has its distinct and insurmountable limitations when applied to public personnel management. The very nature and purposes of government make it impossible for administrative officials to represent fully or to bind the employer in mutual discussions with government employee organizations. The employer is the whole people, who speak by means of laws enacted by their representatives in Congress. Accordingly, administrative officials and employees alike are governed and guided, and in many instances restricted, by laws which establish policies, procedures, or rules in personnel matters." Hillier says Roosevelt would have absolutely rejected the mass demonstrations aimed at blocking access or regress from the state legislative building and keeping children out of school. Roosevelt wrote the following, quote, "Particularly I want to emphasize my conviction that militant tactics have no place in the functions of any organization of government employees. Upon employees in the federal service rests the obligation to serve the whole people, whose interests and welfare require orderliness and continuity in the conduct of government activities. To this obligation is paramount, since their own services have to do with the functioning of the government. A strike of public employees manifests nothing less than an intent on their part to prevent or obstruct the operations of government until their demands are satisfied. Such action, looking toward the paralysis of government by those who are sworn to support it, is unthinkable and intolerable." Franklin Roosevelt, 1937. And I could have sworn Barack Obama thought he was Franklin Roosevelt. Maybe he thinks he's Ronald Reagan again. And I recall Reagan fired the Patco workers because they broke their contract and struck. Well, here we have a sick-out. Obama's sending his hoods and his thugs with Tim Kaine into the breach to support the wrong side. We'll be right back.